Hey there, I'm Gabe.
And I'm Johnny. No game review today. This time around we're doing something different. This is our first Zelda theory.
The not-so-recent The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild brought up several questions about the universe of Hyrule, but it may have given us enough clues to solve some of the mysteries from this land. Let's find out just how long Zoras live.
To figure out how long Zoras live and when they become adults, some assumptions will have to be made as almost nobody gives us a precise age, but it's enough to narrow down their time frames and get a good notion of their lifespan. Hang on because it might get a bit confusing.
Many of those ages be calculated around the 100 years gap between the Return of Calamity Ganon, the events of the game, and Link's age, which would be our first assumption at 17, now 117. The same age as Zelda, who was turning 17 the same day the Calamity struck.
Starting with the Zoras you speak to that give you an age range, when first arriving at the Zoras domain, Riven, one of the guards at the entrance, remembers Link and mentions he's just over 130, and that he, Link, Bass, and Gaddison used to swim together when they were all children. If he was exactly 130, that's what he would say, and he doesn't seem worried about his age like some other Zoras. So, if he was older than 135, he would probably say he's less than 140, or even round it up around more or less 135. So it's safe to assume he's between 131 and 135. He may be the most accurate we can get from any Zora, so that's quite important.
Okay, so Riven's age is between 131 and 135.
Now going for Mipha's diary, available on the Champion's Battle DLC of Breath of the Wild after completing the Divine Beasts, she mentions a little boy of 4 years old named Link who visited the Zora's domain. In a later entry, she stated that Link visited the domain again, and that, quote, "It felt like forever since he was here last. He no longer resembles the child I first met. He is now an accomplished knight and keeper of the sword that seals darkness," end quote.
Time for more assumptions. If Link's no longer a child, was named a knight, and holds the Master Sword, he probably already looks almost like the one we see in the game, but there's still some time before the Calamity comes. Before it, Princess Zelda must go ask Mipha to pilot Faruta, Link must visit Zora's domain again and defeat Lynel, stealing Mipha's heart in the process. He must also be chosen to guard the princess, and then he and Zelda have to spend enough time together so that she can stop hating Link. Despite the first of those events being Zelda asking Mipha to pilot Faruta, and both look the same as we know, that means all of this happened at least a year before the Calamity, and quite an eventful one. So we'll ballpark it at 2 years, making Link around 15 when Mipha sees him after a long time and he is no longer a child.
Remember when Mipha told Link he grew up much faster than she did? This happened during that long time when they didn't see each other, because before that he would still look like a child to her, but now he looks older than Mipha. This means at this time she's around the same age we meet Finley in the present, whom we don't know exactly how old she is. Or maybe a bit younger since Finley complains it's taking too long for her growth spurt to happen.
This is important because Mipha didn't used to play with Link so much when he was a child, but rather cared for his bruises afterwards, and she did consider him younger. That makes her older than Riven, Bass, and Gaddison. I'd say she was just out of childhood and starting adolescence. Bass and Gaddison are close in range to Riven, but there's nothing else to follow here. They could be a bit younger, older, or the same age. Bass could be the older as he was the leader of the Big Bad Bass Brigade they were a part of. But we can be more precise here.
Let's make a timeline to visualize it better. So here's where we at 100 years ago. We don't know the date, so we'll call the Return of the Calamity Year 0 and the Hero's Awakening Year 100.
On the day of the Calamity, Link was 17, Riven was from 31 to 35, and Mipha was just older than Riven, so she was from more than 31 to more than 35. We have no idea by how much.
On the year 13 BC, that's before Calamity, Link was 4 years old when he visited Zoras for the first time, and played with children Zora at most till he was 15. So this year Riven was between 18 to 22, and again Mipha was older than 18 to 22. Finally, crossing the narrow street and going to the guard on the other side of the entrance, we meet Dunma, Riven's daughter. When asked about her age, she gets quite nervous and just says that she's less than 100 years old. The way she gets annoyed and defensive about this might suggest she's getting close to 100. Let's ballpark at around 90, and with long lifespans, turning 100 just 10 years from now doesn't seem like much, but going lower to say around 80 starts to feel like a stretch for how worried she is about reaching 100.
That'll make her being born around 10 years after the calamity returned, meaning her father, Rivan, was between 41 and 45 when she was born. Then we now have our first data about adult Zora age, and since he doesn't look like that much older than his daughter,
Damn NPCs, you look all alike!
he could have been a young adult when she was born.
So, with all this information, it's safe to assume that around 20 Zora is still a child, but closer to 25 they don't play as much with younger children, so it's equivalent to becoming a teenager, and somewhere around or after 41 they are already adults. As Mipha was close to asking Link in marriage, she should be somewhere around that age during the calamity.
Here we'll need to add what may be my biggest speculation, but it's not without foundation. Mipha notices Link growing faster than her, and after a long time without seeing him, they both were not children anymore when Zelda came back to talk about the Divine Beast, sometime before Mipha meeting Link again. I think she had her growth spurt during that time they didn't meet. And then the growth spurt for Mipha was between anywhere from 18 to 41 years old. She just mentions that being on Hylian, Link looked grown up much faster than her. Since she doesn't say if she took longer or shorter to grow like Finley does, I'll assume she was around the average for Zora.
The Zora innkeeper Koda is also a childhood friend of Link. She claims to be around 100, but generalizing other Zoras around the same age, so that's a bit vague. She used to call him Lini, maybe implying she was younger than the others, but old enough to have a crush on Link. She even made him choose between her and Mipha at some point, so she was between 18 and 31.
Prince Sidon is a little over 100, but never more specified, and he's still younger than Koda, as he vaguely remembers Link from his childhood, and the other kids at the time do. So he was between 1 and 22, definitely older than 1, but we have no idea by how much. If I have to guess, I prefer to think he's just as old as Link, making them both 117 in-game. Childhood is from less than 18 or 22, the growth spurt is somewhere after that up to at most 41 or 45, and adulthood is at some point after 31 to 35.
Zora is a child for sure until 18 or 22 years. Anywhere between this and 41 or 45 is their adolescence, and somewhere ahead of 31 to 35 they become adults living past 100. I suppose you could add 5 to 10 years to each as a margin of error, but since this isn't real life, we'll just meet both edges of the ranges halfway and round it up to the closest multiple of 5. That's how video game biology should work. So we're left with this.
Childhood from 0 to around 20, adolescence from around 20 to around 40, and adulthood from around 40 till death. And Mipha was a young adult 100 years ago. Then she was somewhere around 40, give or take a few years. And now, how long till they sleep with the fishes?
Well, there isn't too much to go on other than speculation now, but follow my logic. We know that 4 Zora guards and Sidon are around 100, so it's safe to assume that most of the other guards are around the same age. Quite a few of the older main Zoras were guards when the calamity struck, so assume that the average of them was 100 as well at the time, making them around 200 by now. Tona, a member of Sidon fan club, is less than 100 and says that an old Zora can be over 200.
I would assume the oldest one we meet is the retired Zora priest, Capson, who wanted to perform one last marriage before dying. We don't get to see him dying, but that would suggest he is already quite old. But still, he is able enough to go up around the mountain to perform his last marriage, to the surprise of other Zoras. While none are precise, these Zora are the people who most mention their ages in Hyrule. If there was one of them above 300, they would certainly have mentioned it, so it may not be impossible, but certainly unlikely for a Zora to live that long. Now, it has to be a guess, maybe around 250, giving or taking a couple decades, with one very important exception, the Zora royal family.
King Dorathon surely looks older than the average Zora, but nowhere close to the elders, and he has, to our knowledge, 100 years since the calamity, around 40 of Mipha's lifetime, plus at least another 40 to be an adult, making him a minimum of 180 years old and looking strong. I bet he still have at least half of his life ahead of him, giving a royal family member easy 400 years if not a little more.
This is similar to bees, where regular working bees usually live for around 6 days or 6 months over winter, while some queens can live up to 6 years. That gap comes from the different diets they consume, also making them larger than the others. Like with the Zoras, but I don't think it's right to just use the same proportion for them as well. I'm afraid to round it up to 500. It just seems too much already, so let's leave it as is, 400. We are seeing this with Sidon, who, being a member of the royal family, already towers over every other Zora, which now made me think that every other adult Zora is quite taller than Link. So either Mipha was quite short for Zora, or she hadn't grown all she could by the time of the calamity.
And now for a bonus round that you may or may not have heard before. With royal Zoras living so long, if you believe the placement of Twilight Princess in the timeline being right after Ocarina of Time, then there's a huge chance that the Zora tunic you acquired there from Queen Rutella's ghost that was made by her husband, the late Zora King, specifically for the chosen hero, is the exact same Zora tunic adult Link receives from King Dobon, Ruto's father, making Prince Rylai's Ruto's baby brother. And to make things even more confusing, Rutella is likely named in honor of Water Sage Ruto of the Zora, being born after the events of Ocarina of Time and later marrying said Sage's father.
I suppose that'll be all for today. So what do you think about this theory? Does it hold water? Would you like to see some more theories in the future? Let us know in the comments below.
And while we'll keep making game reviews around the channel, we have some more Zelda theories of our own we'd like to share with you, so tell us if there's any particular subjects you'd like to see next.
As always, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel to get notice of our next uploads.
See you on the next video.
Later!